Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. I'm coming to you solo today, Josh Lander, on a quick one-off video that I'm throwing you guys about this Kyrie Irving trade, seeing how that affected a few things here. I mean, there's been some movement, enough to talk about for sure. This is the three I really want to talk about would be, the Eastern Conference futures odds, the Western Conference futures odds, and the MVP odds, I think, are also probably the most interesting things impacted by this trade. As we know, Kyrie Irving sent to the Dallas Mavericks, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, some other stuff, all going over to the Brooklyn Nets. So it's a much different team now for both of these squads, I would say. And I guess we'll start here with the Eastern Conference and how that's been, impacted now. Starting with Brooklyn, I mean, you talk about the KD injury. It was already something that was impacting them, but I think before Kyrie started making noise about trades, that they were still sort of in the favorite as you considered that they were going to be able to survive well enough for him to get back and still get them probably like a top 4, if not top 3 seed, let's say, in the East, although 76ers are playing really well. But if you look at what their odds were on the 1st of February to win the Eastern Conference, plus 350, then Kyrie starts chirping around the 3rd, saying he wants a trade and he wants out, and that moves their odds all the way up to plus 600, as I think everyone pretty much started to think, even if he does stay on this team and they don't trade him, he probably isn't going to play. He's going to cause a problem in some shape or form. And so, those odds already were at plus 600. Then he does get traded, and it's plus 700 now on most books for this team in Brooklyn to win the Eastern Conference. And a little bit of a jump, but still not much of a trade now that not much of a change now that he actually is gone from the team. Just real quick, the other 3 teams, let's say in the East, that are likely to be able to win it, besides maybe the Nets previous to this trade. The Celtics favored. They're basically unchanged. They've been at like minus 190 when Kyrie started making noise. Still at about plus 190, plus 170 for them to come out of the East now, and most places, especially on DraftKings right now. So it's not that much different, as they were already likely to beat the Nets if they face them in the playoffs. The Bucks a little bit better, plus 350 to about plus 280. They've also won 7 games in a row, so that's probably a bigger impact on why their odds, which were already a little bit shorter than the Nets, are not really that much different. And then the 76ers went from plus 600 to plus 400 because they were impacted, and they were basically even if not slightly longer odds for them to win the East there. And so they've gotten a lot better. The theme there with the 76ers is, if you're talking about Joel Embiid, if you're talking about playoffs, you're talking about health. And I don't know that he's not going to miss 10 games randomly between now and the playoffs, or at some point in the playoffs. I don't want it to happen, but it's not something that I would be putting my money on if the odds aren't very, very long for me, and I get some really nice juice on what's going on with them, and them going from plus 600 to plus 400, less likely that I would even want to talk about putting some money on them right now. I think what I'm saying for the East is, at Milwaukee, Boston, if you're looking at those 2 teams as the favorites right now, and you give the nod to the Celtics, that's fine. But like, if you look at the sort of other factors going on here, I think it's a lot closer to a coin toss than it is for them to essentially have almost double the juice in terms of Milwaukee at plus 280ish. Like I said, plus 170. It's just a lot better for the Bucks right now in a way that I think you can probably put some money on them right now if you wanted to. I'm not necessarily going to myself, to be honest, but that's where I would put it, just because of getting a little bit back on something that I do think is closer to 50-50 there. The Western Conference, real quick, it did cut Dallas's the odds to win the West in half. They went from plus 1,400 on the 1st to plus 700 after this trade, where they sit right now. Not much other change going on there around the West. Memphis, the only team actually to have their odds get a bit longer. If you wanted to take them, they went from plus 400 to plus 500, but that really wasn't necessarily the impact of that Kyrie trade. They've just been hemorrhaging games. They continue 3 in a row, at least for them, and they continue to add guys to their injury report seemingly every night. Jaws day to day for their game, that next game up as well. So we'll see in terms of the West. I don't think I'm likely to go ahead and put more on Dallas now, or in any way, shape, or form, just because they have Kyrie. They do not have any defense at this point. So they're between Luka, Kyrie, and Christian Wood as their 3 best players at this point. Not really anything you trust there in terms of defense. Still going to be playing too much Dwight Powell. So yeah, I'm not really touching the West any differently than I was, to be honest, as a result of this. The last one I'll end with, MVP. I think it's really interesting Doncic odds haven't changed. He's at plus 700, which is where he's been since he's had that injury. He missed 4 of the last 5. He's going to miss tonight or Monday night, depending on when you see this, versus Utah. And so that'll be 5 of 6. And that's really why he's at the plus 700. And then I don't think it's more likely that he's going to get that award now that he's got a guy who actually helps him a bit on offense. And like I said, I still don't know what's going to happen to this team on defense, if they're going to be able to score enough to be able to make up for what I don't think will be a very stout defensive unit that they can put together and still have scoring on the floor. So Giannis, the only other thing notable here for the MVP race is him. He's in his last 7 that the Bucks have won 7 in a row. He's been back for all those after missing 5 in a row. And like I said, 7-0 for them in that time frame. 39.5 points a game for our guy, basically 15 boards and 5 assists. This is all on 60% shooting from the field on a 42.2% usage rate. Usage rate means how often are you shooting the ball when you're on the floor, and it's 42% of the time that Giannis is the one taking the shots. Also getting to the free throw line 15 times a game in that span. Only 9 of 15, not great, but not terrible for Giannis, and at least he's getting those 9 extra points from the free throw line. So he's moved in the last week or so. He's moved from plus 1100 to plus 700, which is where he was at. More so when he came back from injury 7 games ago, he was at plus 1100. He's worked his way up to plus 700, and he still might be worth it. I mean, I'm not necessarily feeling any better. Jokic is still the guy that everybody in the media and everyone who seems to have a vote is still favoring. So I don't know why I would go against what they're saying, considering they're the ones who dictate what happens here. And you can talk about Joel. He's the only one with better odds than Luka and Giannis right now, behind Jokic at plus 250. And as much as I would love for Joel to continue to play out the season, like I said, relevant to the 76ers, you just can't trust him to stay healthy down the stretch, and just not at plus 250 anyway. It's just not worth it for the sort of mishap that could happen and cause you to be able to just lose that bet if he's not on the floor. So I did want to say we are going to have a more robust video around this after Thursday's trade deadline. So you are going to want to like and subscribe to that page. We're going to come back with a bunch more awards and futures that we're looking at as we are past this trade deadline. Maybe there'll be a few more things that we'll have to talk about, a few more guys on the move that will impact all this stuff before then. So until we see you next, happy betting.